So what we see qualitatively for a lot of our warming herbs is that oftentimes these are plants that contain aromatic volatile oils, resins, terpene type compounds, whether that's monoterpenes, sesquiterpenes, diterpenes. The terpene category oftentimes have a warming effect. Not all the time, there's definitely exceptions, but majority of them tend to be warming in nature. And so that those chemicals in these plants tend to give these remedies the taste of pungency, of aromatic, spicy, so to speak. And this is really the primary taste that we tend to think of having a warming virtue. And those are the chemicals that we tend to associate that. Now, when we think of traditional Greek medicine or Galenic medicine, Galenic humoral medicine, they classified not only herbs accordingly to warming, cooling, moistening, drying, but they had varying degrees of those four qualities. First degree being a very mild, almost food-like quality, whereas fourth degree is very, very strong, either really, really medicinal or to the point of being potentially toxic in higher doses. Fourth degree plants can, if used improperly, cause injury. So they tend to be the very strong low dose herbs or herbs that need to be used carefully because they do have a very strong effect. Typically as herbalists, we're usually using second, third degree plants, first degree plants if we can. And that's a really good general rule of thumb as an herbalist, is that if you can achieve the result you're striving for with a mild herb, always use the milder herb over the stronger herb. Like, we always want to use the mildest medicine to treat the people that we're working with. If you can get it done with chamomile, why use hops? You have a much less likelihood of creating a potential undesirable side effect. You have less likelihood of creating constitutional or humoral imbalance by using milder herbs. And we can even take it a step further, where if you can achieve the result you're striving to achieve with a dietary or lifestyle modification, even rather than an herb, you should do that. So we really, because that's going to be getting more to the root cause of the problem. It's kind of jokingly said amongst many herbalists that people don't get sick because of any sort of herb deficiency, but they certainly get sick because of vitamin and mineral and macronutrient deficiencies, to be sure. People definitely get sick because they make choices in their daily life that lead to them getting sick. And so if we can help someone through dietary and lifestyle modification, we want to do that even before we go to use herbs. But when we do use herbs, we want to use the mildest remedies that we can to achieve the desired effect. And I mention this because when it comes to using warming herbs throughout the winter to maintain constitutional balance during the cold time of year, we generally want to use those milder remedies, especially if you're going to be using them on a consistent daily basis. You want to use first or second degree herbs, generally speaking. Some of the effect that we will find, and what I tend to think of as almost a universal effect of a warming plant, is that you take the warming herb, it travels, and this is the first place that it starts. It starts here in the core, the solar plexus. It starts to kindle that fire, that central fire resting there in the center. And from there, as that fire warms, it generates heat. That heat expands and radiates outwards. And so we'll see it radiating out into circulation of the blood, pushing blood to the surface, out to the periphery. And I would say this is kind of the main effect that I notice with warming herbs. And now the degree to which an herb will do that is really dependent on how spicy it is, how pungent it is, how volatile and aromatic and strong it is. And you can really delineate the degree of the degree of warmth of an herb based on the intensity of its pungency. So a very mild pungent herb will be gently warming to the core and move the blood a little bit. A really hot, spicy herb, say cayenne pepper, is gonna really, light your mouth up, light your stomach up, for better or worse, and drive that blood to the point where it opens the pores and makes you sweat. And this is an important principle when we're talking about warming herbs, especially for the winter months, is that key here is that you want to warm the body up, but keep the warmth in the body. If you ingest herbs to the point of them being so hot that you start sweating, well, now you're doing the opposite and you're cooling the body down. This is the whole function of the sweating mechanism, is to release the inner heat of the body by opening the pores, generating a sweat. That moisture on the skin cools down, the blood hits that coolness, recirculates back to the core, and generally will bring the temperature down. You don't want to do that in the winter time. If you've ever been out, we get a lot of snow where I live, and go out to shovel the walkway, and wearing a big puffy down coat, and you start getting sweaty in there as you're working hard, and all of a sudden you stop working and you get very, very cold. And that's because the pores are open, there's moisture on the skin, and that is going to excessively cool you down. And that is not good. Well, many traditions, especially they said Chinese medicine, there's cold invasion, that cold can invade the body, what's generally referred to as like an external pernicious influence. That we think in terms of weather. And this is why we call it catching a cold, right? I mean, it's right there in our language. For some reason, a lot of people don't believe that, but there is a lot of wisdom to calling a cold. It's because when your body is exposed to cold, it has an impact on your immunity, on your thermoregulation, and you can get sick from that. And so especially the back of the neck, they say the back of the neck is an area where that cold can enter. And this is why wearing a scarf is actually an incredible way to maintain body heat, because it keeps that cold from entering. So we want to use warming herbs, but not so warm they make you sweat. Some of the primary actions that we can expect of herbs in this category is carminative. So this is going to be a gastrointestinal action. Carminatives are generally going to warm the GI, bring blood flow to the GI, increase gastrointestinal secretions, and they generally will help to relax a bit of tension, spasm, cramping. They can ease bloating and gas and wind accumulation. But the carminatives are a fantastic quality here, especially for someone that has cold digestion. This is really the main action that I tend to think of for people with cold digestion. And we want to warm and circulate and stimulate the digestive system in that way. From there, we move out to circulatory stimulants for the blood and for the vasculature. So here we have diffusive remedies, herbs that move blood, drive blood. Typically, herbs that move blood will help to relieve stagnation. Obviously, if you're increasing the movement of something, you will relieve stagnation of it. And on the higher end of those remedies would be the, and by higher end, I mean stronger degree of warmth and circulatory stimulation would be stimulant diaphoretics. So those are the ones that are going to be hot enough to drive blood to the surface, open the pores, and make you sweat. Fantastic class of medicine for acute febrile conditions, especially during the stage of a fever when you have a temperature, but you feel cold, the skin's pale, dry, you feel shivered. That's when you want to use the stimulant diaphoretics. Now, because many of these remedies have aromatic volatile oils, or even resins. We find many of these plants also have a respiratory affinity and will act as stimulant expectorants. And this is really helpful because obviously during the fall and winter and even early spring months, the respiratory tract is the primary area of the body that gets sick for people. So the stimulant expectorants are those herbs that are used to clear phlegm, cold phlegm from the lungs. So this is usually when you cough and you expectorate mucus. It is of a clear or white coloration. It tends to be thick. It tends to be kind of globular and congealed, but it's cold. And that is a really, really critical element to understand. When you have a lot of green or yellow mucus that's being expectorated, that typically indicates heat. And actually many of the stimulant expectorant herbs can be contraindicated. Now, there are ways that you can still use them. You just need to formulate them properly to make it so that they're not going to be too hot to irritate and aggravate the respiratory tract more. Typically, you need combine them with more relaxant, demulcent type expectorants to moisten the mucosal membrane, relax tension and spasm, kind of calm everything down in there, reduce the heat in there. But the stimulant expectorants are really great for that cold phlegmatic cough.